The morning started like any other aboard the colony ship New Hope. Admiral Kim Tae-ho was drinking his coffee in the command center when the alien ships appeared on their screens. 3 massive vessels, dark and angular, with weapons that glowed like angry stars. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Captain Park Soo-jin from her station. Her voice was calm, but her fingers were already moving toward the defensive controls. Tae-ho set down his cup and nodded. "Put it through." The alien voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical. "Human vessels, you have entered Vorthon, territory without permission. You will turn around immediately and return to your home system. You have 1 hour to comply." Tae-ho looked at the star charts floating before him. According to every galactic law he knew, this system was unclaimed. No flags, no beacons, no settlements. Just empty space and a few promising worlds that could support human life. "This system shows no territorial markings in our databases," Tae-ho replied into the communicator. "Under galactic law, these worlds are open for colonization." The response came faster than he expected. "Galactic law does not apply to inferior species. You have been warned." Park Soo-jin looked up from her console, concern written across her face. "Sir, they're powering weapons. Shields up. Alert the colony ships." Tae-ho's voice remained steady, but inside he felt a familiar coldness. He had seen this before during the Mars conflicts decades ago. Some species believed that might made right. The first blast shook New Hope like a toy. Emergency lights flickered on as the crew worked frantically at their stations. Through the main view screen, Tae-ho watched as the 3 alien ships focused their fire not on his military vessel, but on something far worse. Harmony Station hung in space like a jewel, its gleaming corridors filled with 50,000 human civilians. Families who had traveled for years to start new lives. Children who had been born during the long journey between stars. Scientists and teachers and engineers, all dreaming of building something beautiful in this new system. The Vorthons targeted them first. "They're firing on the station," Park Soo-jin shouted over the alarms. "Biological weapons. Some kind of virus bomb." Tae-ho watched in horror as green clouds spread through Harmony Station's corridors. On the communication channels he could hear screaming. Parents calling for their children, emergency teams trying desperately to reach trapped families. Then, one by one, the voices went silent. In the mining facility on the planet below, Lee, Min-ho was teaching his 8-year-old daughter how to operate the atmospheric processors when the attack began. He held her close as they watched through the reinforced windows. Above them, Harmony Station was dying. "Daddy, what's happening?" she whispered. "I don't know, baby. But we're going to be okay." He was wrong. The second wave of attacks came from orbit. Not quick plasma fire that would have been merciful, but something designed to cause maximum suffering. The biological agents spread slowly, eating through metal and flesh alike. Min-ho watched his daughter's face change as the poison clouds reached their section. She died in his arms, asking why the pretty lights in the sky were hurting people. Back on New Hope, Park Soo-jin's rescue teams worked frantically to save who they could. Shuttles raced between the dying station and the ship, pulling survivors from sections that hadn't been completely contaminated. But for every person they saved, 100 more were lost. The worst part wasn't the dying. It was what came after. As Harmony Station's hull finally cracked and spilled its dead into space, the Vorthon ships began broadcasting, not just to the human vessels, but across all known communication channels. They were showing the attack to the entire galaxy. "Let this be a lesson," the alien commander's voice echoed through space. "This is what happens to species that do not know their place. Humans have 1 year to withdraw to their home system. If we find you anywhere else in our territory, this will happen to all of your worlds." Tae-ho stood in the command center, surrounded by his crew, watching the broadcast repeat again and again. The aliens were showing the deaths of human children like it was entertainment, like it was something to be proud of. Park Soo-jin approached him quietly. "Sir, we've recovered 800 survivors. The rest..." She didn't need to finish. "Send a message to Earth," Teho said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell them what happened here. Tell them everything. What should we do about the colony mission? Teho looked out at the space where Harmony Station had been, where 50,000 humans had died for the crime of wanting to build homes among the stars. Where a little girl had asked her father why the lights were hurting people. We go home, he said. But we remember this. We remember every face, every name, every child who died here today. He paused, watching the alien ships cruise through the debris field like predators examining their kill. And we make sure this never happens again. The Vorthons had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. They had killed human children and broadcast it as a warning. They thought they were teaching humanity about limits. They had no idea what they had actually done. The emergency session began at midnight Earth time. President Choi Da-eun sat at the head of the long table, her face illuminated by the holographic displays showing the destruction of Harmony Station. Around her, the most powerful leaders of humanity watched the footage in stunned silence. 50,000 civilians, General Han Woo-jin said quietly. They targeted families first. The biological weapons were designed to cause maximum suffering, added Dr. Kim Ye-jin, the head of medical research. This wasn't just an attack. It was torture. Da-eun had watched the alien broadcast 17 times since it arrived. Each time, she felt something cold and hard growing in her chest, something that had been sleeping for decades ever since the Mars Wars ended, and humanity had chosen peace over conquest. They think we're weak, she said finally. They think because we build farms instead of fortresses, we can't fight back. Defense. Minister Park Jong-soo leaned forward. Madam President, our current military can't match 3 Vorthon battle groups, let alone their entire fleet. We need time to build up our forces. We don't have time. Da-eun stood and walked to the window overlooking the sprawling city below. Millions of humans going about their daily lives, unaware that their species had just been marked for extinction. They gave us 1 year to abandon everything we've built beyond Earth. Every colony, every station, every dream of expanding to the stars. She turned back to the table. Motion to activate Protocol 7. The room went silent. Protocol 7 was a code name that most of the people in the room had never heard spoken aloud. It was a plan created during the darkest days of the Mars Wars, when humanity had faced the possibility of complete defeat. General, Han cleared his throat. Madam President, Protocol 7 hasn't been used in 30 years. The civilian population doesn't even know it exists. The civilian population just watched their children die on galactic television, Da-eun replied. I think they'll understand. Within hours, coded messages went out to every human colony, every space station, every mining facility scattered across dozens of star systems. The messages were simple. The children are gone. Come home. But something else went out with those messages. Instructions. Activation codes. Orders that had been waiting in sealed files for 3 decades. On the agricultural world of New Eden, farmer Song Minji received her message while harvesting grain. She read it twice, then walked to her barn and entered a code she had memorized 20 years ago. The floor opened, revealing equipment that had never been used. Terraforming machines, she had told her neighbors. Tools for shaping worlds. They were, in a way. Just not the way she had claimed. In the research station orbiting Kepler 452b, Dr. Kim Ye-jin abandoned her work on crop diseases and opened a different laboratory. One that officially didn't exist. The biological samples she had been studying for years suddenly had a very different purpose. Captain Yoon Jae-sung was running supplies to the outer colonies when his orders came through. His cargo ship, the Peaceful Trader, had been making routine runs for 8 years. His crew were all civilians as far as anyone knew. Family men and women who just wanted to make an honest living hauling goods between the stars. Well, boys, he said to his crew as they read their new instructions. Looks like it's time to stop pretending. The transformation began quietly. Across human space, ordinary people started doing extraordinary things. The mining engineer who had lost his daughter began modifying industrial equipment with skills he had never shown before. The merchant captain started installing weapon systems that had been hidden in his cargo holds for years. On Earth, recruitment centers that had been closed since the Mars Wars suddenly reopened. But they weren't asking for volunteers. They were calling in people who had been waiting for this moment. Commander Lim So-young had been working as a freight coordinator for the past 15 years. Her official record showed no military service, no combat training, no reason why she would be called to active duty. But when her activation code came through, she walked into the nearest recruitment center and presented credentials that made the recruiting officer's eyes widen. "I need a ship," she said simply. "What kind of ship, Commander?" "The kind that doesn't show up on sensors." The Vorthons had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had seen the peaceful colonies, the trade ships, the research stations, and assumed that was all there was. They had looked at humanity's response to the Mars Wars and decided that humans were naturally peaceful. They had missed the most important lesson of human history. Peaceful didn't mean harmless. For 30 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not hoping for it, but preparing for it. Every colony ship carried more than civilians. Every research station had a secondary purpose. Every freight captain had a second set of orders. The Vorthons thought they had attacked a species of farmers and merchants. They had actually kicked a sleeping tiger. President Da-Un stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as ships began arriving from across human space. Not the cargo vessels and colony ships that had left Earth years ago, but something else entirely. Sleek, predatory shapes that moved through space like hunting cats. "How long do we have?" she asked General Han. "The Vorthons will expect us to run," he replied. "They'll be watching for evacuation ships, refugee convoys. They won't be looking for what's actually coming." Da-Un nodded, still watching the growing fleet. "Good. Let them keep thinking we're afraid." She paused, remembering the faces of the children who had died at Harmony Station. They wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. Time to return the favor. 6 months after Harmony Station died, the Vorthon Empire began to feel the first cuts. It started small. A supply convoy disappeared between the Rigel system and Vorthon Prime. The cargo ships simply vanished from sensors, leaving no wreckage, no distress signals, no trace they had ever existed. The Vorthon Navy sent a search fleet, but they found only empty space. Commander Lim So-young watched the search ships from her hidden position in the asteroid belt. Her stealth squadron had been tracking Vorthon movements for weeks, learning their patterns, studying their weaknesses. The aliens flew in perfect formations, communicated on predictable frequencies, and followed military procedures that hadn't changed in centuries. "They fight like they're still playing war games," her pilot whispered over the comm. "Good," So-young replied. "Makes this easier." The human ships were invisible to Vorthon sensors, wrapped in technology that bent light and absorbed energy signatures. They had been waiting in the asteroids for 3 days, patient as spiders in their webs. The second supply convoy came right on schedule. So-young didn't attack the military escorts. Instead, her ships targeted the support vessels, the fuel tankers, the spare parts haulers, the communication relays that kept the Vorthon fleet connected to their home base. Within minutes, the convoy was crippled but not destroyed. The warships were left floating helplessly in space, their crews watching their support systems drift away as debris. "Let them call for help," So-young ordered as her squadron prepared to leave. "Let them tell their commanders what happened here." 3 systems away, Captain Jung Min-woo was conducting his own kind of hunt. His team had spent weeks studying Vorthon communication networks, learning how their military talked to their government. The aliens used quantum encryption that they believed was unbreakable. They were wrong. Min-woo's ship, disguised as a damaged civilian vessel, drifted near a Vorthon relay station. His technical specialist, a quiet woman named Lee Hye-jin, worked at her console with the focused intensity of a surgeon. "I'm in," she announced finally. "Full access to their command network." For the next several hours, false orders began flowing through Vorthon military channels. Fleets were sent to empty, systems chasing phantom human attacks. Supply runs were canceled or rerouted to the wrong destinations. Patrol schedules were scrambled, leaving crucial areas undefended. The Vorthons began to realize that their enemy wasn't fighting the kind of war they understood. On the industrial world of Vega 7, the Vorthon administrators woke to find their factories silent. Overnight, someone had introduced a computer virus that shut down every automated system on the planet. The production lines that made weapons for the Vorthon fleet stopped working. The mining equipment that extracted rare metals went dark. Even the power plants that supplied energy to the cities began cycling down. Engineer Song Min-ji watched from orbit as the planet's lights flickered and died. Her modified terraforming equipment had done exactly what she designed it to do: reshape a world's infrastructure, just not in the way the original designers had intended. Phase 1 complete, she reported to the command ship. Industrial capacity reduced by 80%. The pattern repeated across Vorthon territory. Communication stations went silent. Supply depots exploded from the inside. Military installations found their defense systems turned against them by invisible hackers who seemed to understand Vorthon technology better than the Vorthons themselves. But the real psychological warfare came from Captain Yoon Jae-sung. His ship, still disguised as the harmless merchant vessel Peaceful Trader, intercepted a Vorthon patrol near the outer edge of their territory. Instead of attacking, he opened a communication channel. Vorthon vessel, this is the human ship, Peaceful Trader. We have a message for your commanders. The alien captain, confused by this strange contact, accepted the transmission. Tell your leaders, Yoon said calmly, that every child who died at Harmony Station has been avenged 10 times over. We have taken apart your supply lines, your communication networks, and your industrial base. Your fleets are stranded without fuel. Your planets are dark without power. And we did it all without firing a single shot at your warships. He paused, letting that sink in. We could have destroyed your ships, we could have killed your crews. But we wanted you to understand something first. This isn't about honor or territory or military glory. This is about consequences. You killed our children, so we dismantled your empire, piece by piece, system by system. The Vorthon captain tried to respond, but Yoon had already cut the connection and vanished back into hyperspace. Reports of the conversation spread through the Vorthon fleet like wildfire. For the first time in centuries, their military commanders began to feel something they had never experienced before: fear. Admiral Vex, the architect of the Harmony Station attack, stood in his command center staring at tactical displays that showed red warning lights across half the empire. Supply lines cut, communication networks compromised, industrial worlds gone dark, and nowhere could his intelligence officers find the main human fleet. Where are they? He demanded. We know they have warships. Where are their battle groups? His tactical officer, a young Vorthon who had been monitoring human transmissions, looked up nervously. Sir, I don't think they're using battle groups. I think they're fighting like parasites. Small teams, surgical strikes, maximum disruption with minimal force. Vex slammed his fist on the command console. That's not how civilized species wage war. But as reports continued to pour in from across Vorthon space, he began to understand the terrible truth. The humans weren't fighting a civilized war. They were solving a problem, and they were very, very good at solving problems. In the depths of space, Commander Lim So-young received new orders from Earth. The hunt was about to become something much more serious. The real war was about to begin. The Vorthon High Council met in emergency session as reports flooded in from across their empire. Half their industrial worlds were dark. Their supply lines had collapsed. Entire fleets were stranded without fuel or ammunition. And still, no one had seen the main human battle force. Admiral Vex stood before the council, his usually confident demeanor cracked like broken armor. The humans are not fighting according to any known military doctrine. They target infrastructure, not military assets. They use weapons we've never encountered. They seem to appear and disappear at will. Council leader Zahn leaned forward in his throne. How many ships do they have? What is the size of their fleet? We don't know, Vex admitted. Our intelligence suggests they're using small strike teams, maybe a few dozen ships total, but the damage they're causing. He gestured helplessly at the tactical display showing red zones across Vorthon space. A few dozen ships are crippling an empire? Zahn's voice rose dangerously. What kind of weapons are they using? Before Vex could answer, every screen in the council chamber flickered and went black. Then a human face appeared. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, standing on the bridge of a ship that looked nothing like the peaceful colony vessels the Vorthons had encountered before. Vorthon High Council, Tae-ho said calmly. I am Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Human Defense Force. 6 months ago, you killed 50,000 of our civilians and broadcast their deaths as entertainment. You demanded we leave our colonies and return to our home system. You believed we were weak because we chose to build rather than destroy. The council chamber erupted in angry voices, but Tae-ho continued speaking as if he could hear them. Today, we're going to show you what happens when humanity stops holding back. The transmission ended, and immediately every alarm in the Vorthon capital began screaming. Through the massive windows of the council chamber, they could see ships dropping out of hyperspace. Not dozens of small raiders, but hundreds of massive warships that seemed to bend space around them. Engineer Song Minji stood in the command center of the vessel Retribution, watching as her gravity weapons began to work. The massive machines she had originally designed to move mountains on colony worlds were now focused on the Vorthon orbital defenses. Space stations that had protected the capital for centuries simply crumpled inward on themselves, their metal hulls folding like paper under impossible gravitational forces. Target their military shipyards next, Admiral Tae-ho ordered. Leave the civilian areas alone, but make sure they can never build another warship. On another human vessel, Dr. Kim Ye-jin monitored the deployment of her biological countermeasures. The same viral weapons the Vorthons had used on Harmony Station were now turning against their creators, but with a crucial difference. The human version didn't kill. It simply shut down Vorthon military equipment, dissolving the specific metals and polymers used in their weapons while leaving everything else untouched. Their ground-based defense systems are going offline, she reported. The virus is spreading through their military network faster than they can contain it. Captain Young Min-woo's cyber warfare team had complete control of Vorthon communications. Every message sent by their military was being intercepted, decoded, and either blocked or altered. Orders to retreat became orders to surrender. Calls for reinforcements were redirected to empty space. The Vorthon fleet was fighting blind and deaf, but the most terrifying sight was Commander Lim So-young's hunter-killer drones. Thousands of small, intelligent machines that replicated themselves using materials from destroyed Vorthon ships. They moved through space like schools of metallic fish, dismantling enemy vessels piece by piece and using the raw materials to build more drones. Admiral Vex, watching his empire collapse around him, opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Admiral Tae-ho, we wish to negotiate terms of surrender. The response came immediately. No. Please, we can offer reparations for Harmony Station. Territory, resources, technology. We acknowledge that our attack was excessive. Excessive? Tae-ho's voice was cold as vacuum. You killed children and broadcast it for entertainment. You thought we were weak because we preferred peace. Now you want to negotiate because you realize we're not. On the planet below, Vorthon civilians watched as human ships systematically dismantled their military infrastructure. But something strange was happening. The humans weren't targeting cities or civilian areas. Medical supplies were being dropped in urban centers. Food shipments were arriving at hospitals. It was as if the human fleet was performing surgery on their civilization, cutting out the military while keeping the civilian population alive. The final blow came when Captain Yoon Jae-sung's technical teams penetrated the Vorthon government networks. In a matter of hours, they had downloaded every military secret, every weapons design, every tactical plan the Empire had developed over centuries of conquest. We now know everything about your military capabilities, Tae-ho announced to the Vorthon High Council. Your weapons, your ships, your strategies. We know which worlds you've conquered, which species you've enslaved, which civilizations you've destroyed. And we're going to make sure none of that happens again. The Vorthon capital's planetary shields, the strongest defensive systems in their empire, simply vanished, not destroyed. disabled by human hackers who had rewritten their control software in real time. Council leader Zahn found himself staring up at human warships that could have destroyed his entire world with a single command. "What do you want from us?" "Justice," Taeho replied. "For 50,000 dead civilians, for every species you've conquered, for every child who died because you thought might made right. The Vorthan Empire, which had ruled this sector of space for 3 centuries, ceased to exist in a single day, not through genocide or massive destruction, but through the precise application of human technology and tactics that the aliens had never imagined possible." As Admiral Taeho stood on his bridge watching Vorthan ships drift powerless in space, he felt no satisfaction. Only a cold certainty that the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The species without limits had finally shown what those words truly meant. 3 months later, Admiral Kim Tai-ho stood in what had once been the Vorthan High Council chambers. The ornate throne room was now a temporary human command center, filled with officers coordinating the massive task of dismantling an empire that had ruled for 3 centuries. Captain Park Soo-jin approached with a data pad in her hands. "Sir, the relocation of the Vorthan civilian population is complete. We've moved them to agricultural worlds where they can rebuild without military capabilities. Their former slave species have been freed and given their own territories." Tai-ho nodded, but his expression remained troubled. Through the massive windows he could see human ships patrolling the space around the former Vorthan capital, ships that had revealed capabilities the galaxy had never imagined humanity possessed. "What about the other empires?" he asked. "The Keltar hegemony has formally surrendered without firing a shot. They're dismantling their military and requesting human protection. The Zephyrian Alliance sent a delegation offering tribute and asking for a non-aggression pact. The Draken Republic has abandoned 6 star systems that they claim were never really theirs." Park Soo-jin paused, looking at her admiral's weathered face. "Sir, they're all terrified of us." That was the problem. In the span of 7 months, humanity had gone from being seen as a peaceful species of farmers and traders to something that made ancient galactic empires surrender at the first sign of human ships. The transformation had been so complete, so overwhelming that other civilizations were now treating humans like a force of nature rather than a fellow species. Commander Lim So-young entered the chamber, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something more complex. "Admiral, we've finished analyzing the Vorthan archives. They weren't just conquerors, they were keeping order. Brutal order, but order nonetheless." She activated a holographic display showing the sector of space humanity now controlled. "There are 17 different species in this region. The Vorthans kept them from fighting each other through fear. Without that fear, 3 civil wars have already started. 2 species are demanding we give them Vorthan territory as compensation for centuries of oppression, and the Draken Republic is trying to expand into the power vacuum we created." Taeho studied the display, feeling the weight of unintended consequences. "So we didn't just destroy an empire. We destabilized an entire region of space." "Yes, sir. And they're all looking to us to fix it?" Engineer Song Minji had been quiet since the final battle, but now she spoke up from her position at a technical console. "Admiral, I've been reviewing the weapons we used. The gravity manipulators, the self-replicating drones, the viral countermeasures. We deployed technology that violates 14 different galactic treaties." "Treaties humanity never signed," Taeho pointed out. "No, sir, but there were reasons for those treaties. The Zerion Wars, the Quantum Plague, the Cascade Collapse of 2387. Other species learned these lessons the hard way and created laws to prevent them from happening again." She pulled up technical specifications that made even experienced officers uncomfortable. "The hunter-killer drones we used, they're still replicating. We've shut down the primary swarms, but secondary populations are spreading through the asteroid belts of 7 different systems. The biological countermeasures are evolving faster than we predicted. And the gravity weapons, we've destabilized the orbital mechanics of 3 star systems." Dr. Kim Ye-jin, who had been monitoring the aftermath of their biological warfare, added her own concerns. The viral agents we used were designed to target Vorthon military equipment, but they're mutating. We're seeing strains that affect civilian technology, agricultural systems, even medical equipment. We may have created a plague that could cripple technological civilization in this entire sector. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had won their war, but at a cost that was only now becoming clear. Captain Jung Min Woo, who had been coordinating with the freed slave species, brought more troubling news. Several of the liberated worlds are requesting human military intervention to settle territorial disputes. They want us to decide who gets what resources, who has the right to colonize which worlds, who should be punished for collaborating with the Vorthons. He paused, looking around the room at his fellow officers. They're asking us to become the new Vorthons, to rule through strength because they don't know any other way. Admiral Taeho walked to the window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there in the direction of Earth were the graves of 50,000 humans who had died at Harmony Station. Children who would never grow up, families who would never be reunited, the people whose deaths had started this chain of events. We did this for them, he said quietly, to make sure no one else would die the way they did, to show the galaxy that humanity wouldn't be pushed around or eliminated. He turned back to his officers. But look what we became in the process. We're not the same species that built colonies and explored peacefully. We're something else now, something that makes civilization surrender without a fight. President Choi Da-eun's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth. Admiral, the galactic community is requesting a meeting. They want to discuss management of human expansion. They're offering us a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, with veto power over any military actions. Taeho almost laughed. 6 months ago, humanity had been ignored by the galactic community. Now they were being offered leadership of it, not out of respect, but out of fear. Tell them we'll consider it, he replied. But first, we need to figure out how to clean up the mess we made. As his officers began planning for the complex task of rebuilding a stable region of space, Taeho reflected on the price of victory. Humanity had proven they were a species without limits. But perhaps the most important limit was knowing when to stop. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The question now was whether humanity could learn to live with what they had become.